In today's world of ever-evolving social media, fast-loading mobile responsive websites, and smartphones replacing desktops for many things, you should think of branded content as one of your organization's most important assets. There was a time when think tanks got by on just producing white papers as their only content. Well, that time has long passed. But that's not to say that think tanks should abandon their research and publication work. Not at all. It is to say, however, that the way you communicate, publish, and distribute that research must be in line with the way today's donors, influencers, members of the media, and general public consume content. For this reason, it is essential that every think tank have a dedicated content strategy. Remember from lessons 1 and 2, the 3 key principles at the core of marketing and communications? 1. Understanding your audience's problems, needs, and desires. 2. Know what your brand does well. And 3. Be great at execution. Well, this lesson is all about focusing on that third point, being great at execution. So why is a content strategy important? Well, for several reasons. Content is one of the primary ways to bring your product and brand to life. Content is one of the most important assets in the battle of ideas for freedom. Content serves as the first way many think tanks reach their audience. Content is one of the primary vehicles to communicate the ideas of freedom, peace, and prosperity. Content will make you competitive, not only among like-minded think tanks, but with media outlets and with organizations that are opposed to our ideas of freedom. And if and when done right, an effective content strategy will help things like SEO and search effectiveness. I'm going to share with you 2 important definitions. One is for content strategy, and one will be for content marketing strategy. They're different things. First, content strategy. Content strategy is the creation, publication, and governance of useful, usable content. This is the way that Christina Halverson, founder of Brain Traffic, a content strategy consultancy, defines it, and have found it to be the simplest way to define it. Second, content marketing strategy. This deals with using your content strategy in ways that engage an audience and drive profitable behaviors, like attend an event or donate to an organization. Really smart marketers understand that traditional marketing is becoming relatively less effective than it used to be. Thought leaders and marketing experts from around the world, including the likes of Seth Godin, have concluded that content marketing isn't just the future, it's the present. And in a recent survey of some chief marketing officers, more than 70% said that content is the future of marketing. So, an important note to make is that not every piece of content will be an overt attempt to drive a profitable behavior. So, to restate, what is content strategy? Content strategy is the creation, publication, and governance of useful, usable content. And what is content marketing strategy? This is using your content strategy in ways that engage an audience and drive profitable behaviors. Throughout this lesson, I'll be using this distinction and will focus mostly on content strategy. I mentioned earlier the potential SEO benefits of a content strategy. SEO, or search engine optimization, is the process of making a web page or website content visible in a search engine like Google, Bing, or Yahoo. Well, when SEO first started, there was a strong emphasis on keywords. Well, now the key is to focus on quality content and context. From the consulting company Red Rocket. In a nutshell, think about why people are looking for something rather than what they are looking for. A content strategy should be designed to answer their needs, not just provide them with facts. Having more and more quality content increases the likelihood that your ideas will rank high in search and show up on Google, Bing, and Yahoo searches. And seen as how organic search traffic is a proven driver of business growth, it's essential that you consider search and content carefully. And you may have heard the saying before, content is king. Well, that's not actually true. Only great content is king. So not just any old content, it has to be great. And what defines great? Quality and relevance. Sites need to consistently add fresh, quality, relevant content that is timely and topical. This helps you rank high on search rankings, and Google will see that and will be more likely to rank your website higher in various search results. So how do you start to efficiently plan and implement your organization's content strategy? The first step is to develop a plan and then write your plan down. The sheer act of writing the content strategy plan down does several things. It increases the chances of your success. It creates a system of responsibility and accountability within your organization, and it makes it infinitely easier to measure, assess, and revise. Here are the 4 T's of your content strategy plan. 1. Topics. 2. Types. 3. Timing. And 4. Tone of voice. Topics. What topics will you include in your content strategy? Will you cover rule of law as it pertains to business contracts? Or will you cover immigration policy reform? Or will you cover politicians' vote records? And just as important as the topics you will cover is knowing which topics you won't cover. To help you decide on the topics you will cover, I'll share a tool with you called Scope of Content. Scope of Content is a tool that involves answering 3 questions. First, what topics are relevant to your product, service, or organization? For example, with our hypothetical campaign on education savings accounts, these topics relevant to the campaign might be education reform, school children success, school budgets, getting into college, and back to school. Next, what topics are relevant to your audience's needs and desires related to the core issue of your product, service, or organization? Here's an example using that same education savings account example. They need a safe school to send their children to. They want their children to succeed in school so they can get into a good college and ultimately get a good job and have a happy life. The purpose of answering these questions is so that you match up what your brand does well with the content that will meet the needs and desires of your audience. Finally, you should answer what is outside the scope of content, or what are the guide rails. These are the topics you will not cover. So again, using our example of education savings accounts, these guide rails, or the topics you wouldn't cover, might be school buses and daily transportation, video game and cell phone usage of school children, and criminal justice reform. The point of these 3 scope of content questions is to get you thinking about what types of content are most relevant to your audience, and it will be a helpful reminder of what topics you will not cover or the topics that you will not write about. The next T in our 4 T's template is types. Will your content be curated? Will it be created? Will it be produced for specific channels of communication? You have to ask yourself all of these questions. And something that I just mentioned is the topic of content that is curated. So what is curated content? Content curation is using expertise and insights to find previously written content by another organization that is both relevant to your product, service, or brand and interesting to your audience. Great content curation adds relevant context and relevant additional information to the original content. And really, there are so many different types of content you can create for specific channels of communication, like email, press releases, print publications, research papers, magazines, newsletters, digital content, web content, social media content like Facebook posts, tweets, Snapchat stories, Instagram posts and stories, articles that go in depth and are longer, like long form content, which ranges from 700 to 3,000 words, or blogs that are shorter that contain just high level info without too much of the detail and range from 300 to 500 words. With so many types of content available out there, many people ask me, well, what types of content should I use? And I always answer, what types of content does your audience consume? That's when you really have to rely on your audience analysis research, and then sometimes you have to rely on your intuition. The next T in our 4 T's template for your content strategy is timing. Timing is about deciding at what time, sequence, and interval to publish content. So with timing, you should answer questions like, when will you share your content? Will you post to web and social in a specific and specified sequence? Will you share your content at regular intervals? Well, there's an ideal time for each type of content, and it's entirely based on the needs and desires of your audience. So for timing, this involves deciding at what time, sequence, and interval to publish content. You've got to think about when your audience is reading content and at what intervals do you want to share it with them. So I wanted to share an example that we use here at Atlas Network. We've outlined our content strategy, and the timing of our content strategy looks something like this. Well, we send out daily social media posts, weekly blog posts, bi-weekly World 10 emails, quarterly print publications, and 1 annual year in review. Well, I encourage you to add as much specific details to this as possible. The final T in our 4 T's template is tone of voice. A good way to think about and define tone of voice is the broad traits and characteristics you want to embody in all of your content. It's important to use a consistent tone of voice throughout your content. This will help people relate to and identify your brand. And ultimately, your tone of voice should match the purpose of your product, service, or organization and the needs and desires of your audience. So imagine if your product or service or organization were a real person. How would you describe the personality of that person? Here are some examples of tone of voice. It could be subjective, objective, logical, emotional, intimate, distant, serious, humorous. Well, you should narrow your tone of voice down to 3 broad traits, and then you should define each one further. What could the tone of voice be for our hypothetical educational savings account example? Well, how about hopeful, factual, immediate? So now the next step, let's define each one further. Hopeful, inspirational, a better life, youth are our future. Factual, full of real-time data, stories based on real statistics, all the details. Immediate, not off in the distance. This can happen here, now. It's happening elsewhere now. Well, now that I've taken you through the 4 T's of the content strategy template, I'd like you to develop a content strategy template of your own as you outline your topics, types, timing, and tone of voice. Go into the resources section, download the 4 T's template. This will be your assignment due on Wednesday. Before you get started, I thought I'd share some content strategy ideas and best practices. Tell real stories of real people. Take one research paper, turn it into multiple pieces of content across multiple mediums. Don't assume your readers will make it to the end of your content, so include the key points and what you want people to know in the first couple of paragraphs. Develop a style guide for your communications. You can either pick one like AP, Chicago Manual of Style, MLA Handbook, or you can do what many organizations do. They pick one, they modify or customize it for their organization. That's what we do here at Atlas Network. We chose AP and we've customized it or modified it slightly. Make sure your content works on mobile. Google now prioritizes sites with mobile responsive design and penalizes sites without it. Great content in the world of ideas for freedom is one of our most important assets. So you must, if you haven't already, develop and write down your content strategy. It is essential that every think tank have a dedicated content strategy. This will help you create your content. It will guide how you publish it, and it will help you make the most of your content so that it advances your product or service or organization's main goals. Thank you. I have just a few quick announcements and reminders. Immediately following this video, there'll be a short quiz. And then after that, you should start to fill out your 4T's content strategy template. The assignment will be due by Wednesday. And next week, we'll focus on putting all of the previous lessons into practice and discuss op-eds and give you an opportunity to write an op-ed using all of the work you've done in your previous lessons. And a few of you have asked me if all of the op-eds will be published. No is the short answer. If it is one of the best op-eds, we'll let you know, and then you can decide if you want it published. And at least 2 op-eds from last fall's course were published, one in the Washington Post and the other in Indonesia's largest newspaper. And as a reminder, check out the course's discussion forum online. And as always, if you have any questions for me, don't hesitate to email me at daniel.anthony@atlasnetwork.org. Thank you.